Maelstrom Wanderer versus Tasigur, the Golden Fang. That hand is okay. We can get into a preordain on turn 1 and hope that our opponent doesn't have a mental misstep. Tasigur does tend to be a very spiky commander, but we'll soon find out if that's the case or not. A couple of lands on top. I don't think I mind, actually. Going for the Beastcaller Savant next turn, we can only use that mana to cast creature spells, but no doubt it'll come in handy at some point. It does have haste, so we might as well peck our opponent. You never know when 1 or 2 points of damage is going to be the difference between winning and losing. And holding up 2 mana is... yeah, well, we'll just have to play the Warm Power Stone, see if they've got anything for us. Apparently not. So let's peck them again. Now we've got a land next turn, maybe a Sky Shroud claim. So it's probably the turn after that we go for Maelstrom Wander. That's an 8 mana 7/5 Teamer commander. Gives our creatures haste and we cascade twice when we cast it. Tasigur, the Golden Fang, is a 6 mana 4/5 with Delve. For 4 mana, mill 2, and then return a non-land card of an opponent's choice from your graveyard to your hand. They went for a Spell Seeker there into a mana drain. I think we get down... why don't we get down the Ethereum Horn Sorcerer? We'll cascade into something, I hope. Okay, there's a Mystical Tutor. Might as well cast that and get ourselves into some more... oh, Bribery. No, Bribery's not likely very good against Tasigur, is it? Let's just go for a Cultivate. Doesn't need to be anything too flashy because they're probably going to counter something next turn anyway. Not going to swing in and trade creatures with our opponent. In worst case scenario, we can bounce this back to our hand and cascade into more stuff anyway. Okay, they get themselves a Chromatic Lantern so they can hold up that mana drain mana. So let's go for the Cultivate first of all. No, let's go for Sky Shroud Claim. They might let the first spell go. No, they're just going for that, so they're quite happy to get the extra 4 mana. I think they might have let a Cultivate go because we knew it was in their hand. We'll just get down the City of Brass into Cultivate. And now the good thing is we can get into Maelstrom Wanderer, and it doesn't actually matter if our opponent counters it or not. This is the good thing about this deck. I like to play this deck against control builds, so been pretty lucky here. Cascade occurs when you cast the spell, so we'll get the Cascade triggers, and they'll probably resolve even if our opponent counters the Maelstrom Wanderer. And then if this thing goes back into our command zone, we can just cast it again for more Cascade, so it's not necessarily the worst thing that can happen. Heuristic Study and a Future Sight come into play, with an Impulse on top that cannot be cast because our opponent only has 1 mana available to them. Okay, there's a Pithing Needle. They can name 1 Power Stone with that. But it doesn't matter if they do because we can still go for Maelstrom Wanderer. They've just gone for the Ethereum Horn Sorcerer, so we can't bounce that back to our hand now. Doesn't actually matter really, we don't particularly care about doing that. And then do we want to put 1 into Heuristic Study? I think we certainly do, because our opponent only has a couple of cards in hand. And then let's hope for some good cascades here. We can stack the top of our library with a Scroll Rack, but... oh, a Tooth and Nail. Yeah, the only thing we can do here is search for a couple of creature cards. So we'll put another mana into the Heuristic Study. Obviously we can't put any creatures from our hand onto the battlefield with that, so we just have to go for this. Let's try a Consecrated Sphinx. And a Prophet of Kruphix. Okay, we just get a bit more mana with the Birds of Paradise there. And can't pay 1 into that because the bird hasn't hit the field yet. And they've got a Snapcaster Mage in hand, so that's noteworthy. They can go Snapcaster into Mana Drain. So if they hold up 4 mana, we know what the plan is. Might as well swing in here, and I have no doubt they'll chump with the Spell Seeker. They can only take 3 direct hits from the Maelstrom Wanderer before they get up to 21 commander damage. More card draw on top with Knight's Whisper. And they can play the top card of their library thanks to the Future Sight. Okay, now there's a copy artifact on top. They've got 4 mana held open, no doubt for the Snapcaster into Mana Drain. Let's encourage our opponent to play the Snapcaster now. I highly doubt they're going to, but we might as well get 10 points of damage in here. We'll get down the Mana Crypt, and we'll put a mana into that. Now they can go Snapcaster Mage next turn to block the Maelstrom Wanderer, but if they're doing that, they're not copying the Mana Drain. They can also get down their Tasigur, but they're going to have to either exile a lot of cards or tap a lot of mana to do that. So I am just not going to give them any opportunity to Mana Drain here. I think we've got the upper hand and we can wait it out longer than they can. They go for Impulse. And they reveal a Swamp on the top of their library. So we know what they're drawing into this turn. And then another land on top. So they just decide to play the land on top and reveal a Phyrexian Revoker. So they could go for Mana Crypt or Warm Power Stone with that. Okay, and a Treachery means that I'd be tempted to go for a Chaos Warp. That'll get the Mana Drain out of their hand. And at least they're forced to spend the mana on their own turn that way. Okay, they allow us to do that, so they want to keep the Mana Drain in hand. And a copy artifact onto... okay, they went for an Ethereum Horn Sorcerer. This will only cascade if they cast it, so they didn't get a cascade there. They can bounce it back to their hand now, thanks to the Chromatic Lantern allowing them to generate red mana. And now I think we can go for our big creatures. They might have a free counterspell in hand, but like I always say, I'd rather it was actually used as opposed to it being in their hand. Now then, Krosan Grip, is that worth doing? So we'd have to put 4 into Krosan Grip and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 into Prophet of Kruphix. And then 1, 2, 3, 4 into Thran Dynamo. No, I think I'd rather just go in for Prophet of Kruphix and the Consecrated Sphinx, and I think we can pay for the Rhystic both times with that. Actually, I've just changed my mind. I think I'm going to go for the Thran Dynamo, and then we can go for the Krosan Grip onto the Future Sight. I think is a better idea, because they're getting card advantage from that. And then there's no point swinging in because our opponent just blocks that and nothing dies. Now they know what's in our hand. We have a Consecrated Sphinx. And we're 1 mana off casting our Maelstrom Wanderer, unfortunately. We can go for Consecrated Sphinx, but we know they have a Snapcaster Mage into Mana Drain. And there's the Tasigur. Obviously they are leaving their Mana Drain in the graveyard. And then Phyrexian Revoker, probably Thran Dynamo that names. Yep, it certainly does. That's Thran Dynamo. Can't tap for any mana now, but our mana concerns are of no real issue this game. And then they do have the mana held up for the Snapcaster Mage, so we're not going to play into that. I will play into it with a Maelstrom Wanderer though, because like I said before, we still get the cascade triggers with that. And a Worldly Tutor can set up some cascades as well. Yeah, let's go for that. And actually, thinking about it, we have Worldly Tutor as an instant. We can cast Consecrated Sphinx at instant speed, as well as our Maelstrom Wanderer. I don't think there's any benefit from doing this on our turn, so let's just... If our opponent wants to spend 4 mana to counter it, then they can do it on their own turn. The risk here is that they mill 2 lands and force us to give them Mana Drain. And that, of course, is exactly what happens. So now they have 2 Mana Drain activations if they want. I think in that case we just go for... Or do we go for... Yeah, Consecrated Sphinx is better, actually. Let's go for the Sphinx now while we can. No reason not to put mana into the Rhystic Study. And it's a good thing we managed to get that Prophet of Kruphix onto the field. We'll definitely draw cards with the Consecrated Sphinx. Okay, Wood Elves is fine to get out. Can help us go wide on our opponent maybe. And a Dig Through Time, there's nothing we can do about that. They can look at the top 7 cards of their library, choose 2 and put them into their hand. And they've delved the lands away to do that. And this is what the Golden Fang really wants to do, is put a load of cards into their graveyard and then delve them away to cards like this. And then you have a tough choice to make with Tasigur's ability. Tasigur might make you choose between 3 counterspells, for instance. But they got a lucky mill off the top there with 2 lands, so we had to give them mana drain back. Here's hoping we can just take full advantage of the Consecrated Sphinx. It is a 4/6 in the air, but there's a Demonic Tutor, that's a shame. But if they're using Demonic Tutor for spot removal on the Consecrated Sphinx, then at least they're not using the mana for mana drain. And it must be instant speed removal if that's what they went for, because they are passing the turn. Let's get down a Wood Elves. Might as well go up a couple of permanents here. Okay, Lotus Cobra. See the Unwritten is... We can look at the top 8 cards of our library and put a creature from amongst them onto the battlefield. This might force them to kill the Consecrated Sphinx. So let's see if we can get 4 points of flying damage onto them first. Okay, that's good. Let's go for See the Unwritten for 7 mana. This could give them 6 mana, but we can't cast that at instant speed, so... Okay, they allow us to have it. We'll go for... Muldrifter and Scavenging Ooze is really good. We'll draw a couple of cards off the Muldrifter. We'll make a land drop, and do we want to go for Sphinx of Athun? I think we just go for Lotus Cobra. They might have gone for a Cyclonic Rift, actually. And that might be why they're willing to take it through to the next turn. Alright, let's see if they've got a Rift for us. Definitely going to draw some cards and scroll racks there so we can start fixing the top of our library for when we cast our Maelstrom Wanderer. Okay, there's a Damnation, that's no doubt what they went for. So in that case, let's attempt an instant speed Maelstrom Wanderer. How much is that going to cost us? That's going to cost 10. I'm really missing the mana from that Thran Dynamo because I would like to take some cards out of our opponent's library with the Scavenging Ooze. See what we cascade into. There's a Nature's Law for... Oh, that'll give us an untapped green source, actually. Not going to put 1 into Rhystic Study. We're just going to have to give our opponent some cards here. But if we let them draw, then we get to draw ourselves. We'll get ourselves a Tropical Island. Oh yeah, and that's more green with the Lotus Cobra as well. So we'll definitely make green with that. And then do we want to... I don't think there's anything we can cascade into that gives everything indestructible. So there's not really any point. We could go into the Kiki-Jiki, copy a Consecrated Sphinx and draw even more cards. But then it's just going to die anyway. Let's go for that. Put Kiki-Jiki on top. And then we cascade into it. And get to cast it. Okay, but they opt not to draw a card with Rhystic Study there. Because they didn't want to feed us more cards with Consecrated Sphinx. And there we go, they're finally using that mana drain. which is good because that means that we can get rid of it with the Scavenging Ooze. We'll definitely get rid of that mana drain. And then I think we get rid of the Demonic Tutor as well. I don't want them to have the Damnation potentially, but they can go for another board wipe with a Demonic Tutor. And after all that, the Damnation resolves. Our opponent does not have access to the mana drain anymore, but they do have a Snapcaster in hand still. And they can't do anything with it, apart from put a chump blocker in the way of a Maelstrom Wanderer, which will now cost 12. They get 5 mana from the mana drain, countering the Kiki Jiki. And they do need a blocker in the way. If we can get down our Maelstrom Wanderer next turn, then we'll definitely go for that. Okay, Tezzeret the Seeker seems like it might be an issue for us. That can search for an artifact with X or less CMC and put it straight into play. And that is what they're going for. They're going for a Vidalcan Shackles, which cares about the number of islands in play. 1, 2, 3 and 4 I count. 1, 2, that's not an island. 3 and 4. So they can't actually take the Maelstrom Wanderer from us. Oh, we can use Thran Dynamo again because the Phyrexian Revoker's gone, so that's very good. Let's go for Windswept Heath. And then we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 mana available to us as I calculate it, so let's go Scroll Rack. They might be worried about Scroll Rack thanks to the fact that we care about what's on top of our library. We'll put mana into the Rhystic Study. They've only got 2 cards in hand now. Now we'll shuffle our library up before we do any shenanigans with Scroll Rack. Let's just get a basic forest into play. And then do we want to blow anything up? Unfortunately, getting rid of Snapcaster Mage with Beast Within won't do us any good. So we just go for Scroll Rack here into Sphinx of Athun. Yeah, and we'll just leave it at that, I think. And then the Cascade resolves, we get into the Sphinx of Athun. And this will have haste, so we can go straight at our opponent with that. We'll put mana into the Rhystic Study again. And they will get a card draw off of this Cascade if we decide to cast that. Okay, that's a... I mean, we just take the Avenger of Zendikar, really, don't we? Yep, we'll just take the Avenger. Now, to keep our opponent off a card draw, we might not go for this. Oh, well, yeah, I think us getting into 3 cards is better than them getting into 1. So we will allow them to take a card here. They might have a counterspell in hand. They probably want to counter the Maelstrom Wanderer because it's a haste enabler. Okay, they're going for disallow onto Maelstrom Wanderer, is it? Yep, they are. That's the correct one to counter. I wonder if they drew into that off the top with that Rhystic Study. Now, they can take the Arcanis off us with the Vidalcan Shackles because its power is only 3 and they have 4 islands in play. If they get into another island, they can take the Sphinx of Athun as well. We can get down an Avenger of Zendikar next turn and make a couple of land drops thanks to this fetch. And another tutor from our opponent. It feels pretty bad to lose to a deck that can just sculpt its hand from tutor effects, but it's a tactic that our opponent can definitely go for. And then they go for the Vidalcan Shackles onto the Arcanis. I think it's 14 for Maelstrom Wanderer next turn, isn't it? So I'm just wondering if we can Beast Within the Vidalcan Shackles. Now, do we want to go wide with Avenger of Zendikar, or we could get a Rite of Replication onto Sphinx of Athun? So a kicked Rite of Replication would leave 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, so we could go for Avenger anyway. Let's attempt a Sphinx of Athun. And we'll pay into the Rhystic Study, because our opponent only has one card left in hand. Do they have another counterspell? Ah, I forgot all about the Snapcaster Mage. Yeah, that's, well, it forces it out of the hand at least. Yeah, we've been talking about the Snapcaster Mage all game and I completely forgot about it. Well, let's allow them to counter the Rite of Replication first. And then we can go for the Beast Within. Now we go for Beast Within there. We get our Arcanis back, which keeps them from drawing with it next turn. We'll just... I think we just go for the Chromatic Lantern here. And we'll put a mana into the Study. And then I think I'm going to save the Misty Rainforest in case we decide to go wide on our opponent with the Avenger of Zendikar. They just got into a land off the top, but they can tutor for something with Tezzeret. They're just deciding to untap a couple of artifacts and going for their commander again by the looks of it to get another body into play. So we have free reign to get down our Avenger of Zendikar. They do know we have it. They might have forgotten about it, like we did with their Snapcaster. Going in with a... No, they were going to go in with a 3-3 beast, but we have a 3-4 in hand. Okay, let's draw with Arcanis. We get into a Mana Vault. There's an Inferno Titan as well. Let's just slam down this Avenger of Zendikar. Pay into the Study yet again. And now they're going to start fishing for things with the Tasigur. I think they're trying to make us time out. And this is the problem. I'm always a little bit behind my opponent unless they're particularly slow. I'm usually behind on my opponent because I'm having to slow down a little bit and concentrate on explaining plays and commentary. You can have a Nature's Law. We've only got 3 minutes left. And then we get down a land. We say yes and yield. And then how about we also go for a Lightning Bolt onto the Tezzeret with Inferno Titan. Or are we best? What can our opponent get for 3 mana? No, we can go wide on them next turn anyway. So we'll just go for the bolt onto Tezzeret. I was thinking of bolting our opponent there and then bolting them again next turn with Inferno Titan, but if they don't have a board wipe, then we can get in wide on them anyway, and if they do, then the extra 3 points of damage would be of no concern, I think. And there's the Vidalcan Shackles. I wonder what they're taking with that. They need a lot of bodies in play in order to make the Vidalcan Shackles of any relevance. Okay, they've decided to take their Drake. That is okay. I don't care if they have the Drake. Alright, and there we go. Our opponent sees that they didn't have anything else that they could get going. We had 10, what would have been 2 3s coming across next turn, so that means we can go wide on them. We also get a Lightning Bolt onto them with the Inferno Titan. We were drawing into a Praetor's Council, which isn't terrible. In fact, that's really good. And then we can draw 3 more cards with the Arcanis. If we had the time and the need to drag the game out any longer, then we could have gotten down the Prophet of Krufix again, because that would have come into our hand with the Praetor's Council, but all we needed to do there was go wide on our opponent. They could have activated the Tasigur again, but they would have only had 2 mana available to them anyway, so a Toxic Deluge wouldn't have been able to get them out of that one, plus they didn't have the life for it anyway. So that was a long drawn out game, which tends to be the case against control builds, but hope you all enjoyed it anyway. Maybe some of you out there are into Tasigur the Banana King decks, and that is exactly how they are supposed to run. Hope you all enjoyed it. That was Tasigur the Golden Fang versus the Maelstrom Wanderer. I'm tribalkai on the EDH channel. Thank you for watching.